Alright guys, thanks for coming for this coffee co-lab with us. And I'm excited to introduce Taylor for a while. And if you're right here, then you're probably already know something about her. Watch him make this really short. You've seen him on Shark Tank. This is Taylor for while. Thanks.
So those who don't know us or what we do, we thought it would be best to start with the coolest thing that's happened to me the last couple of years, and we'll start off with the first part of our Shark Tank episode, and then we'll discuss from there.
Next in the tank is a product to make a favorite beverage even better.
Hi, my name is Charles Day.
My name is Taylor Miner from Cedarville, Ohio. We're seeking $100,000 for 10% interest in our company, Third Wave Water. I own a coffee shop, and my customers constantly ask me how the coffees that they brew at home can taste just as delicious as it does in a cafe. Eager aficionados can buy the best beans, grind fresh daily, use the best drip systems, and still not come close to tasting as good.
You don't need expensive contraptions, you need the right water. Your delicious cup of coffee consists of 98% water, so it's so important to use the right type of water when you brew.
So what is the right water, you ask? Well, it's a delicate balance of minerals in the water that make it perfect for brewing. Many cafes install large, complex water systems just to make perfect brewing water. But that's simply not practical for home use. That's why we created Third Wave Water. Simply add this stick of precise minerals to a gallon of distilled water, and you're ready to brew. We've shipped to over 50 countries in all 50 states. Many of those customers have stated that they will never go back to brewing coffee with any other water again.
Join us as we help coffee drinkers around the world finally experience coffee like it was meant to be.
Sharks, who's ready for coffee?
So this is Dylan. He won the U.S. Brewers Cup using There's a U.S. Brewers Cup. There it is. And he won the U.S. Brewers Cup using Third Wave Water.
Thank you very much. Well, you have two, that water and your water.
Yes, sir. So in the black cup, that's local LA tap water.
So let us all try that. Ours.
Yep.
That's good.
That sucks. That's
I'm trying
That
the
is
third wave water.
Third Wave Water. So one packet mixed into a gallon of water.
It's smoother.
I must admit, this is better. It's less
It's a
acrid.
longer finish. It's smoother and is it acidity? Is it affecting acidity?
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. Did anybody here see that last fall? So, that was, it'll be about a year in October. So, yeah, since then we had about 10,000 orders on our website that following week, and since then we have distributors all over the world. We're working on a commercial system so we can get Third Wave Water into the coffee shops. But today I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of what led down what seems like a crazy rabbit hole, or something that on the surface can seem inconsequential, but it ends up being super important. I've owned a coffee roaster for 10 years, and Charles owned a coffee subscription company. And we always knew that water made a big difference. A lot of times as a cafe owner or a barista, you kind of forget about that because every day you're drinking coffee in a coffee shop and it tastes good, and you just expect customers to kind of brew their coffee properly. But constantly, I had customers ruining my coffee at home with their bad water, especially around here. We get really hard water, we'll get a softener, and a lot of things that we experience at home. Have any of you ever experienced your coffee grounds overflowing out of your basket? Has anyone ever had that problem? That is from a softener. So if you have really hard water and you're softening that water, that will cause it to increase the brew time by 50%. And so if one day your coffee grinds are really, really flat, it's because you ran out of salt and you now have hard water. Other things like scale. You get scale on your equipment, your coffee maker, your shower heads, they start to clump and cake, and they just don't work anymore. Well, that kind of stuff is going on in your coffee maker, but more importantly, it's changing how your coffee is supposed to taste. As you've seen from some of the other classes, your coffee farmers, who are putting a tremendous amount of work into the bean. You have roasters that are roasting their coffee to be what they think it should taste like. And I'm sure many of you have experienced where you take a bag of coffee home and you're reading it and it says, this should taste like cherry or apple. And you make it and you're like, this tastes like coffee. You taste nuts, maybe some chocolate, but you don't taste those fruit flavors at all. And the vast majority of the time, that is because of your water. Water around here has limestone. We have really flat, a lot of limestone, and that creates calcium bicarbonate. I did some calculation the other day. In 1 gallon of water, with the average hardness that we have here in Ohio, is equal to 2 capsules of antacids. So 2 antacids are in every gallon of your water. And if you can imagine putting antacid into your coffee, that doesn't sound very good. If you've ever had your coffee and it has a sheen on top, you know the sheen, that's from bad water. What happens is the calcium precipitates out of solution and attaches to the oils that are in your coffee. Just like you would get soap scum building up on your shower, that's the calcium attaches to the oils or the fats, the lipids. In the soap, it happens in coffee. So you get that sheen. So those lipids, those fats, those oils, those acids that you're expecting to get in that coffee are stripped out and you get that oily, nasty sheen. So continue on the story. Charles and I were wondering how can we, in a way that's not too nerdy or too far out, because honestly, even adding minerals to a gallon of water can seem really far out and far-fetched. And that was kind of what the sharks were, I think, expecting until they actually tasted the difference. So Charles and I are at a restaurant in Dayton called Thai Nine, and I had just built a water filtration system for my coffee shop. And Charles said, I wish I could ship your water to my customers. And I made the joke, we should send them dehydrated water. And at that moment, I said, yeah, this actually might be doable. And this was in July of 2016. So I went home, went on Amazon, bought a bunch of minerals, and I dropped off to Charles at this office co-share these little vials of white powder. I said, these are not drugs, and these are for Charles. And about 2 weeks later, he called me and said, that was fantastic. Honestly, I wasn't expecting much. Again, I am at a cafe. I have a really nice water filtration system, and I take for granted every day having the correct water. So we decided, hey, let's play around with this some more. We ended up launching the company in October of 2016. We did a Kickstarter, and in January we launched our Kickstarter, and we hit our goal of $10,000 in 11 hours. Ended up raising $30,000. We got a call in March from Shark Tank. We went through all of the processes on that. We filmed Shark Tank in June, and then it aired in October. So we went from launch to Shark Tank in less than a year, which was unexpected to say the least. So yeah, something that started off as a hobby or a kind of a science experiment between 2 coffee lovers ended up blowing up. And we had, like you see there, Dylan, he won the U.S. Brewers Cup champion in April of 2017, brewing with our water. And he was gracious enough to come and brew for the Sharks in LA. But yeah, that's kind of the story of Third Wave Water, the story of a little bit about why water is important. What I like to challenge people to do is really try it at home. You can hear something taste good, right? You can see stuff, you can see testimonials, but when you actually get to try it at home with your own coffee maker, it makes a big difference. We have some samples left back at our booth. But I think now I was just going to kind of ask questions or see if you guys had any questions about Shark Tank water.
Talk about the filtration system. Is that replace that? Are you saying filtration is still better or this better?
And so the question was, is this like a filtration system? So you have to start with something that's already been filtered, like distilled water or reverse osmosis water. So you start with water that has nothing in it, that it's at zero, and then you add those minerals to it. And because everyone starts at zero, everyone has the same minerals, then anyone anywhere in the world will get the exact same consistency of water.
So I'm assuming you did a chemical analysis on your water to determine what minerals and what proportions to put in, or did you just pull it out of the hat?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Is that a chemical analysis on our water? So yes, for my coffee shop, what I had to do was test the water that I had coming in. Not only that, the water changes from season to season, so you have to keep testing it. But then you have to kind of know what filtration techniques are accurate. Because I know I'm here and I know I want to get cleaner, so you have to know how to kind of massage that water. So yes, at my cafe, that's what I had to do. So I knew that process was difficult to get my customers to do because you have a system that costs maybe $5,000. It doesn't scale well for home use. So that's why if everybody starts off at distilled water or reverse osmosis, they can get that anywhere. Or you can use a zero water filter. The thought was you're starting at this neutral base and then you're adding to it. So how we came up with that specific mineral blend was being involved in the coffee industry for 8 years at that point. I'd gone to a lot of coffee events. I was active in a lot of discussion forums online. Making water at home with minerals was something common. So I kind of had some tacit knowledge that I used along with this practical things. Certain minerals won't dissolve in water. Some don't mix well, some cake and clump, and then they're really difficult to dose into. We have 1.5 grams per dose, and we need to be accurate within 10%. So what we ended up doing is taking kind of that good guess point. We tested it among ourselves, and then we sent it to Q-graders and friends in the industry to test out. And that's really when we got that feedback back from people. And we said, okay, we think we have something here, and we went ahead and launched our Kickstarter.
How much of a difference do you think it would take for water brewing coffee versus
The difference is, what the difference in water from brewing coffee and brewing beer. I think a lot of the things that make coffee taste bad are some of the same things that make beer taste bad if you have the wrong water. So water is important for beers. Different locations are known for having the best water for beer. You get the same with bourbon and whiskey. A lot of distillers around here will try to mimic the water that's in Kentucky, or someone's trying to mimic the water that's in Scotland. They'll go and test the water there and then try to build their water back up. But yes, a lot of those same things that, the chlorides that are in your water, the chlorides, having too much bicarbonate, you have to modify the pH depending on what type of water you have. We have some people that use third wave water to make this. And in the future, we have some plans on coming up with different mineral packets for home brewers to brew with. But yeah, I think some of them are the same, some are different. And in the end, it depends on what it is. So it makes them really beer.
So like boiling water makes it sterile, but so if you take water from Florida versus water from Ohio and boil it, is it still gonna keep the same mineral structure?
No, so that, you'll have the same mineral structure. You can't pull minerals out by boiling it. You can if you were to distill it, collect steam. And one thing, if you ever notice you boil water, you get kind of a scum on the top of it. Around here, the calcium that's in your water, it's called temporary hardness, and it'll come out of solution if it's really cold. So you take your ice cubes, you make ice water, you notice there's white particles floating down. You're like, I'm going to drink my water until it's almost done, and then I'm going to pour it out even though I know that it's safe to drink. So that's calcium that is kind of collected together out of the water. The same as if you boil it. If you boil it, that calcium comes out of solution. And so there are some softening techniques where they will actually, you can add sodium bicarbonate to water, you can boil it. The sodium will catch the calcium, kind of precipitate out and settle and filter. But in general, the best ways to remove minerals are using like a zero water filter, a reverse osmosis, or a distiller.
Tell us about your company name.
Yeah, Third Wave Water. So we're trying to come up with our company name. The story isn't that sexy. A lot of it is practical applications. So we had this Excel spreadsheet. So that's where the not sexy part comes in. We had all these different names that we were thinking about. And then we were like, is their Instagram name available? Is the Twitter name available? Is the website available? And so there was some like, okay, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. And early on, we were kind of thinking, there's a term called third wave coffee, which is it's coffee in the industry where the people that are making it, the growers, are really thinking about the quality. So it is, when coffee first started, it was first wave coffee. This was in the 16th century, when they were drinking coffee, that was first wave. The second wave of coffee was in the 50s and 60s when they started mass producing chock full of nuts, Folgers, putting it in the cans. And third wave coffee was once people started saying, hey, this can actually taste good. I don't just drink it because I need to wake up in the morning and because I have lots of kids and I have to. I drink it because I want to. And that's the third wave of coffee. So our thoughts were like, it's kind of like third wave water. We thought of that one day, and we thought it sounded kind of coffee people that know would kind of roll their eyes, but they would also get it. And all the hashtags and the handles were available. So that's kind of how we came up with third wave water.
I was going to ask, do you have any tips, tricks, or recommendations for home brewing coffee?
Yeah, tips for brewing coffee at home. Yeah, buy coffee from a local roaster, fresh. If you're using what kind of coffee maker do you use at home?
Espresso?
Like an espresso?
Yeah.
Okay, so with something like an espresso, I would use start with good water. If you have something, I haven't done test experiments on an espresso. Let's say you're using like a bun coffee maker. Take your water and don't put it in the fridge, keep it out on the counter. Because actually, as you're heating up that water to boil it, it'll extend that time it takes to heat it up because it's cold. I would also level your coffee maker. That your coffee bed, as water is flowing to the path of least resistance, you can get your water all goes to one side. So I do some dirty things with my little level on. I'll take some dimes or pennies and I'll put them up under the rubber feet, and you can level it. You can also make sure you use paper filters, but I did a little trick where I took a gold mesh filter and I put a paper filter inside of that. And what it did was, typically there are flutes on your paper filter, and those flutes are what allow the water to pass down those ridges and go down. Well, if one of those gets squashed, you notice the paper sticks right to the side of that plastic basket. Commercial brewers have big metal mesh, kind of, they hold it up. So if you put a metal mesh filter in, and then a paper filter inside of that, what you got is equal distribution around it. We also got this tighter, less surface area of a brew column, and I found that the water temperatures were about 2 to 3 degrees higher in the center of that brew column than a traditional. That's I went way overboard. But yeah, I would use if you're gonna have a filter, grind it yourself at home with a burr grinder. Use get a scale if you can at first to kind of weigh out the water to coffee ratio. Once you kind of get good at knowing where that level is, you can kind of just wean it. But yeah, I would start, just zero yourself out, go, Crimson Cup has kind of brew guides, kind of the water to coffee ratio. Yes, so start there, but the other thing I did was I was really trying to max out what I could do with a $15 coffee maker. What I found is I could make a golden cup ratio cup of coffee with a cheap coffee maker and a $200 coffee grinder. So those are just some experiments I did.
What is the difference in the finished brew when you're adding third wave minerals to like zero water filtering water versus intensive water?
If I notice a difference in the coffee taste if I started with like zero water or distilled or RO, I have not. There have been people that say they have, but there's also people that say they've done a lot of things on the internet. Technically, the water for a zero water and distilled and RO should be about the same. Maybe some of the only differences, maybe things like how much dissolved oxygen. If you guys have ever boiled water in a pot, you notice you get little bubbles all around it. Well, if you let that water cool and then you boil it, you won't get any of those bubbles. And that's because you boiled off any of the dissolved oxygen. So some of that could affect how the coffee brews. But in general, I don't think so. But if you did, it'd be fun to test and then do what you like. But I wouldn't use zero water around here. We have such hard water, you don't get very much efficiency out of that filter. You might only be able to do like 8 to 10 gallons, Charles? 15 max on a zero water filter. Whereas if you're somewhere with much softer water, lower TDS, you can get 60 to 80 gallons out of that same filter. So we had a lot of trials and errors on multiple things, not only on the mineral makeup, but on packaging it and on shipping it. When we first started our company, we had a product that was not sustainable. We hand measured out the capsules. And our first event in Chicago, we did 125 packs of 10, and it took 4 of us like 4 days to do. Probably about 30 to 40 man hours. We were weighing little milligram scales. I think I was like in one Sudafed purchase away from the FBI raid. That's all the stuff I was buying on Amazon. So we had these little scales, we're measuring out little bits of powder, putting them in little centrifuge capsules. We upgraded that to actually gunpowder weighing scales. They would trickle gunpowder. We bought a bunch of those. We would have to change out the bearings about every other day because they weren't designed to do really fine powders. We finally got a stick packaging machine. We had I read a lot of articles on pharmaceutical companies. We had to mix our minerals, and you have sodium, which is only 10% of your mixture, or less, 5%. Now I want to mix a big bag of that. When we first started, I would put it on a Ziploc bag and just ship it around. And that's not really accurate. And if you ever get prescription medication, right, and there's supposed to be the right amount of medication in there, they can't do that. So they have things called like V-mixers that actually have it and put it back together. They do that long enough, and you get a high degree of certainty that you have a statistical representation throughout the entire. So we got these. The first V-mixer was $600 for this small one that held about a liter. The one we have now, we're about used, about 20 years old. It was $6,000. But that allows us to make sure we get a homogeneous mixture, and we can make sure that every sample that we take, every time we do a dose, we're going to have a high degree of certainty that we have the same mixture. So we had a lot of kind of self-education in that. So on the formula, we kind of felt bad in the beginning because it seemed like we just kind of threw together a formula and it worked. But looking back on it, a lot of that was those 8 years in the industry, that tacit knowledge that I was looking at the right stuff to begin with. And so my rangefinder was pretty darn close to begin with. And then really, we sent it out, about 50 samples out to people. One was a friend at Onyx Coffee Roasters. I met them like 3 years before at a coffee event, and they're down in Arkansas. I sent them some samples, and of course when you get these samples that look like drugs, it piques people's interest. And I got an email from Mark Michelson. He ended up winning the Roasters Cup that year, and he said, we have 6 Q graders on staff. We got your product, and we were all skeptical. We did a blind taste test, and all of us picked it over the water we're using in our shop. And he's like, I won't brew at home with anything but this now. And we're like, you know, people like it. And kind of what we ended up coming to the conclusion, there is no perfect water. Just like there's no perfect coffee, there's no perfect brew method. There are definitely bad coffees. There are bad brew methods, there are bad waters. But our goal is to get something within this range, or this spot where we got a high degree of certainty that people at home would make a good cup of coffee with this water. It was less about perfection, because the more you try to achieve perfection, the more you realize that you're far away from it, and the beauty actually comes in variations. There's a lot of discussions in coffee. When you get really highly sorted coffee beans, it loses something. It loses this extra spirit or this extra flavor. It becomes really, really bland. You know, what makes marble beautiful is all of the imperfections and inclusions. And so, in the end, we said, hey, this is what people like. And the first and second place Brewers Cup finalists won with it. And so it was, in the end, it's like, we kind of stuck. So, is there anybody else doing this? There are some other companies doing specialty water for coffee. Their formulas are different, and we feel like we're the first people who are coffee people doing water for coffee. The other was, we thought about using the tea, yes. So we've had some tea sommeliers cup it, and it works really well for tea, and we didn't want to lead off with being great for tea just because none of us had a expertise in tea or could speak from a spot of yeah, this is great. But no, so a lot of our new packaging, starting the end of this year, next year, we'll have coffee and tea brewed.
One of the things that's clear in all these classes is there's so many variables.
Yes.
Right? Different coffees, different brewing techniques, different water, different temperature. And once you're continuing research on this in terms of your product, are you looking at refining this and saying, well, if you use, an espresso versus a Keurig versus a AeroPress, okay? I mean, here's the refinement of the kinds of water mixtures, the additives we might use, that will result in a taste-tested better cup of coffee. Or you just sort of stuck in it, this is what we've got now, that's all we can do.
Yeah, so the question is, like, how are we looking for the future to keep innovating kind of in the market? Fortunately, within specialty coffee, there are a lot of people already doing that. There are people on really nerdy coffee forums like Home Barista, on the subreddit for coffee, and so we chime into those conversations. We're thinking about releasing some barista packs where we actually take and have a pack that has cascading different waters and letting people try them and then us getting their feedback from them. So that is something that we were thinking about. How do we keep pushing this? At some point you don't want to seem too pretentious. I think we've already gone past that. But yeah, a lot of it is, fortunately, I think any other industry, there are a lot of people who are pushing those. It's important for us to help in those discussions. And then our passion is more, how can we take those things that are really, really nerdy and then make them applicable and doable for the vast majority of regular coffee. Yeah, we have two profiles right now. One is our classic, and the other is espresso. And that's for espresso machines. They have a complete another caveat, which is corrosion and scalability, because they get up to 250 degrees under pressure. So, in that one, we actually have potassium bicarbonate, which cuts down on the possibility for corrosion. So we have those two right now, and we thought about making some kind of explorer packs for the future, and put them out there, let people kind of give us feedback.
I've tried to buy it, so the whole idea being providing a uniform recipe, if we will, right? We spend all this time on TV, that's 3% of the total volume of water that's consumed, so we have to get standardization. Food confidence takes a lot of that. So anything we gotta implement our own water and systems in the sewage have like water. So just normalizing standardized water. We probably there, especially for drinking, those notes, flat notes become notes. So making that product more accessible. So then a few people in the way, so a lot of people do that.
Yeah, we think a lot of, there has been a lot of talks about standardization of water in the past, just because there's not a lot we have done to do about it. There wasn't a lot of technology stuff available, so a lot of times we have cafes or roasters just kind of avoid the water subject, because they'll let down rabbit holes and just ask more questions than you can ask. But if anybody has any other questions, you can feel free to be out there. You can hop online and find us on all of the social medias after we get on. Anyone have any other questions? We got a deal on the show with Barbara. So our deal ended up not going through. So some behind the scenes, about 50 to 60% of deals that happen on the show don't go through in the end. So it's kind of like the opposite of a bank loan, where you do all of this due diligence and then you shake. So in Shark Tank, you kind of make the deal and then do all these things. So in the end, Barbara thought that we were better off without her investment. We had gotten more in sales in the week after than she was going to offer us, and she had wanted some extra stuff in the deal, and she decided to back out. We were okay with it. We definitely didn't want to make a millionaire mad at us, because it's always better to have more friends. But it was we're still on good terms with them, and it's pretty common, but. Yeah, but it still turned out, yeah, it was a happy one. Yes, so we knew we might have a chance to be on TV. They film about 200 episodes, and only about 120 make the cut. So we filmed in June, and we had to sit around until September. We got an email that said you'll be on in 2.5 weeks. So, so we wanted to get ready, but we didn't have enough money to get Super Bowl, so we got a little behind. When we had about 10,000 orders in a week right after Gary, and I had all my wife and kids at home packing Thursday morning, and we were all hands on deck for things. Right now we sell on Amazon. We sell about 800 packs of 12 a month. We sell about that again on our website. We have a lot of resellers that sell it, like Blue Bottle and Delzinski. We have distributors in Canada, Thailand, Singapore, China, Australia. So we have packs in Arabic that we send to Saudi Arabia. We have packs in Mandarin, and we have our for sale in China. So we have a lot of people that just keep using it now. I think all of us, once we start on something that is nice, and we don't like to switch back. Coffee is kind of like getting air conditioning in your car. It's really hard when you're hard without it. After you've kind of experienced like Maslow's hierarchy of coffee needs. Third way of water is self-actualization. Yes, so we have a patent on our formula, and we have a patent pending, we filed. And we have a provisional patent on our commercial system that we're developing. So we keep our patent attorneys employed.
All right, let's give them a round of applause. We've got things right out here next to the red wall, so if you guys have additional questions or want to talk about picking up some of the products, so in about 3-4 minutes, we're going to connect to Skype to Lima, Peru, to a coffee professional, Karina Verede. I think I'm saying that right. We're really good friends. I hope I'm saying that right. And we're going to talk about sustainability of coffee and the